Good afternoon, beautiful black people. I am CJ Lawrence, one of your hosts of Black People Be Knowing. And today we got some incredible guests with us. Miss Nola Haynes, Miss Shalonda Spencer, and of course, my partners in crime, uh, Miss Sue Ann Robinson, Cirillo Monego, and we waiting on our good sis April Love. She's gonna be pulling up on us in a little while. But today we wanted to talk about a very important issue, obviously an issue that you've been seeing and reading a lot about globally, and that is what's happening with Russia and Ukraine and how that directly impacts even us here in the United States, us as black folk, why it's something that should matter to us, and why foreign affairs and foreign policy is something that we should be paying attention to as it relates to the culture as well. And so we have two of the foremost people that these the homies too. So we got super dope people in Nola and Shalonda here today, and we're excited to talk to them. We wanted to talk to them a little bit about their organization and who they represent and why that's important. So, Shalonda, uh, we'll start with you. Can you just give us a little insight on W WCAPS and WCAPS and just inform a lot of the folks about what it is y'all do and why you find it so important.
Thank you so much, CJ, and thank you for inviting myself and Nola to represent WCAPS. We always like to elevate our voices in this field, and that's kind of what our organization was really founded upon. Ambassador, I cannot talk about WCAPS if you can't talk about the founder, which is Ambassador Bunny D. Jenkins, and she actually is the first Black woman since it's Women's History Month to serve as the Undersecretary of State at the State Department in International Relations and Arms Control. And she founded this organization in 2017 because she saw that there was a void for women of color in this space and in this field. And because of that, she brought women like myself and Nola and so many other women across the globe together to unify us we do things like publish publications, we have panel discussions like these, we have working groups that people can be a part of on specific topics such as climate change, eliciting trafficking, cybersecurity, and all of those types of things and topics that relates to foreign policy and international relations. And so we are almost 5 years old, and we are really truly continuing taking the charge on tackling these issues, whether it's in our personal jobs and within WCAPS. And I'm very excited to share our message. Our mission and vision really is what it is. We elevating women of color in the field of peace and security and ensuring that global perspectives can be appreciated through their lens. And so we always like to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion and how more women of color need to be in this field. Just so you know, statistically, people of color as a whole only make up 33% of the foreign affairs population. So our goal is to continue to try to increase those numbers and be that voice.
That's awesome. Thank you for that, Shalonda. And Nola, I'd like to pass it to you to talk, a little bit more about specifically how WCAPS is involved in informing the culture about Ukraine and what's happening in Ukraine right now, and um, you know how you've even personally been affected by what's happening.
Well, thank you for this invitation, CJ. You know, I always get excited any opportunity I have to talk about these issues to the folks, to the people. And I'm also really excited to share this space with Shalonda, with my executive director of WCAPS. This feels really, really great, especially for Women's History Month. And I definitely want to echo what Shalonda said about, being in a space and doing this work. As a Black woman, especially, one of the things, in addition to everything that Shalonda said, is that we are part of the mission is to also redefine this space, of national security, foreign policy, international relations, foreign affairs, however you want to talk about it, but to bring our lens and perspective to policy, to really, really inform a lot of the decision makers and a lot of the things that are happening in the world that we also have a stake in too. I always say we all have a stake in this democracy. And I think that WCAPS is definitely an exemplar of that, and for the folks out there, WCAP stands for Women of Color Advancing Peace and Security. And that is what we do all day, every day, between, publishing policy papers, between the events that we have. And, I'm personally grateful for a few reasons. I'm personally grateful that Undersecretary Jenkins and Shalonda trusted me with with the West Coast, with all of the West Coast. Like one of my team members said that the other day. She was like, "We have all the entire West Coast." I was like, "You know what? Yeah, we have the entire West Coast." So I feel very grateful to be entrusted with that and to build that out, and then also from having this position to be able to be in the media and to be able to connect with people to talk about these difficult foreign policy situations in a digestible manner. We as Americans, we don't wake up every day thinking about foreign policy or national security. We think about our own personal familial security, our neighborhood security, our human security. We think about those things, but what we try to do is link all of those things together. Like, why is it important for women to show up and do work in this space? Like, why is it important for women to be in the national security and foreign policy space? And then why is it important for Black Americans to understand everything that's going on in the international system and how it directly impacts their domestic lives? So being part of this organization has enriched my life, in so many ways, not just from the platform, but the genuine work that we do and the impact that we've made. And like Shalonda said, we're going on 5. So if we have this kind of impact already, just imagine what the next 5, the next 5, and the next 5 is going to look like. So I'm just grateful for this space.
We're grateful to have you here. Thank you so much. Nola is the homie, and Shalonda is the homie too. So I want y'all to know that before we really get deep into this conversation.
This is the
Now,
Delta up in here. This is the
right,
Delta,
like, hey, we in here, and
The
like
dirty,
this is, but
the
y'all,
dirty
this
South.
is
dirty,
this.
dirty.
So y'all, as y'all know, anytime that something new pops off in the world, particularly in current events, everybody becomes an expert on the subjects that are taking place. And all of a sudden, people were Ukrainian history experts and Russian history experts, and I'm like, what the hell is going on in this world right now? But I mean, it's dope to have two people who are truly knowledgeable in foreign affairs and you know what's taking place in the world. And I really like, before we even get into it, to try to kind of just get a sense of the framework for the background for this. And this is a question for either one of y'all. You all can take it as you choose to switch off. And could y'all just give us some insight into how you know how did we get here? And I hope that's not a too broad of a question, but just a general sense of how we arrived at where we are right now and what we're observing right
No, I'll let you shoot that one.
now.
Shoot that one on out the park.
Okay. So to your point, CJ, yes, a lot of people woke up to be foreign policy experts. And, although I do have expertise, I will never, ever, 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 ever say that I am a Russia expert. I am a political scientist, particularly in international relations. And my particular wheelhouse is national security and foreign policy. Particularly, my research is about threats. So threats from terrorism, nuclear proliferation, emerging threats, WMD in space. So my wheelhouse is more about strategic defense and threats. So that's how I come to all of this. And then I also have a really big reservoir of international relations history. So that's kind of like the expertise that I'm bringing to all of this. I'm definitely not like the homie
Actual expertise. That's what you said. Actual
I
expertise.
mean, hair flip a little bit, hair flip, hair flip. I'm definitely not a Ukraine expert like Terrell Starr and the sis who is a historian. Her name is skipping my head right now. I think her name is Kimberly. But my expertise is a little bit different, so I can kind of help fill in some of the narrative about how did we get here. So it really depends on what part of the story that you want to start with, because our relationship with Russia, it didn't just happen, right? We've had a very long and interesting relationship with Russia, but the way that international relations is formulated is that the starting point is World War II. So if you think about the relationship between Russia and the United States and the rest of the world with World War II, at some point we were allies fighting on the same side. And then the relationship thawed, which then kind of plumed into the Cold War years. I don't necessarily want to rehash that, but, the Cold War years were the time where two nuclear powers were on constant alert that the other was going to strike the other. So it was this kind of really tense situation where we never engaged in a hot war, thank goodness. So as that relationship has, morphed over many years, the fall of the Soviet Union, something that Vladimir Putin witnessed himself as a KGB intelligence officer. And this kind of speaks to a lot of where we are today. This mythical Soviet Union that Vladimir Putin is so intent on trying to revive, trying to put back together, because once it dissolved in 89, they lost a lot of their territories. So Ukraine is one of those states that got its independence in the 90s. There was a memorandum, the Budapest memorandum, that was signed in the 90s. And Russia was also a signatory that said Ukraine is an independent sovereign nation. And if anyone came to violate their territory, the US and Russia would come to their aid and defense. Okay. So fast forward to 2014, where I guess, Putin was like, okay, the clock is ticking and I want to start grabbing back some of this land because, from the Putin experts, they're telling me that he wants to put back the Soviet Union before he leaves. That's what he wants his legacy to be. So in 2014 was the first violation of the Budapest memorandum. The United States sanctioned Russia very hard. They occupied two territories in Ukraine and in the Crimea region. Russia was sanctioned. They kind of backed off. Now, why is this important for us to think about as Black Americans? Our domestic issues plays a large part as to why we are here where we are today. If you do not think that Russia and the rest of our frenemies watching our domestic instabilities around white supremacy and racism does not factor into Vladimir Putin thinking that we are weak and vulnerable and now is the time to strike, then you are sadly mistaken. So all of our instabilities around identity bias and white supremacy and racism that have never been resolved has played a large role into why Vladimir Putin decided to wake up and say, okay, let me continue with my plan. So where we are today is a continuation of a narrative that's been, that's been happening for quite some time since, the 90s, when Vladimir Putin came into his glory in Russia. So we are now in a situation where they're trying to stop Putin in Ukraine, because if he goes any further than that, then we are definitely looking at a situation that looks very close to 1939, and none of us wants that. So that's why this is so important. That's why Black Americans should care, because if it does become a situation where NATO has to get involved, where the US has to get directly involved militarily, you best believe that your Black brothers and sisters and cousins, they're going to be packed up and have to go and fight this war. So it has, what goes on around the world has a direct impact for us as Black folks. So that was a very kind of a lot of history, in a few minutes. And I hope that I was that I was able to articulate that in a way that was digestible. But this situation did not just start, right? And right now where we are is the US is trying to help Ukraine to the best of its ability without engaging directly, because then we are in a World War III situation where two nuclear powers are facing off.
Ooh, thank you. That was really good. It was really good and informative, but informative in a way that was, really palatable. You know what I mean? Like it was. Because when we talk foreign policy, a lot of times it can be so inundating sometimes, and so like I appreciate how you broke it down for us in a way that like we could really all grasp. I kind of want to let everybody else kind of jump in here, I was gonna pass it to Sue Ann to see if there was something that she might want to, interject or add to the conversation.
Okay, whose side is we supposed to be on? That's really what the people want to know. Like when we see the post, is we supposed to donate money to the Ukraine? Is we supposed to stay out of it? What are we supposed to be doing?
Are you asking me or Shalonda?
Yes. Or Shalonda, either
So,
or.
so just to give you context and background, I come from the social justice field and social justice space, but I also come from a expertise in women, peace, and security, where we always researching on how these implications and things that are happening or any type of foreign policy issue or crisis affect women of color in this space. And so, as you know, as people are becoming refugees, women of color, no matter where we are here in the U.S. or in any other country, we become the first to be affected. That's been statistically proven over the history. Women of color and Black women, and I always say these families have always been separated since the beginning of the Atlantic slave trade. And so right now, what we are seeing and what we're experiencing is that women who are now being displaced, there are girls who will, and this is what I also like to say, you have to think about some of the foreign policy issues that's going to happen, like an increase in human and sex trafficking. I think that's something that we have to think about, because when women are desperate and girls are desperate, they tend to get themselves into situations that will exploit them. And so there's been a lot of that happening since the Russian invasion. I also like to say that I'm not as certain as to like whose side we supposed to be on. For me, I always look at issues on how they're impacting women of color. But if I was to take a stance and to decide, I would definitely, for me as a Black woman in this field, I would think about my Black brothers and sisters who are in Russia, who are in Ukraine, who are experiencing these tragedies, the equitable opportunities for them to escape, and having those resources and figuring out what ways can we understand that. And this is also what I told people, I think for the first time in a long time, that people like us see that we have brothers and sisters all across the country. I think there are so many people thought that, and I've heard these conversations when people start seeing the news, and I'm thankful for social media in a way, because it's showing not just the American people, but people from across the globe, how people of color and Black people are being treated. And we've always been treated this way, and it's very unfortunate. And so now we have to figure out, how do we support and we help them, this even when the tables are not turned, where people are helping us. So that's kind of how the lens that I come from, and how I've looked at it from more of a social justice from a social justice way, and how these are impacting women of color, especially girls in the communities of Ukraine.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Keep going.
Oh, I appreciate that answer, because you're saying we need to look to where we are in the equation and go there and give our resources to that point. So to that point, how is we going to free Brittany? Is there some sort of diplomatic way? Is there somebody we need to send letters to? I mean, we need to free Brittany Griner, right? We need to get her out.
Well, I can say something really quick to that point. So, the fact that she was detained, that's a big difference from, the fact that she was arrested is a big difference from her just being detained by Russia in a hostage situation. It's the arrest part that makes it a little bit more challenging. And the fact that before this happened, the U.S. embassy was shut down in Russia. And so there still are diplomats operating at a very low capacity in Russia. So you have a situation where we don't know what her representation is looking like, just because the vibrancy of the U.S. embassy isn't operating on all cylinders. So that's the one thing that I think about a lot. And the fact that she was arrested, seeing as violating Russian law, and then also trying to connect her to some larger global international drug trade, that's the real challenging part, right? Because Russia still is a sovereign state, the U.S. can't say free her when they've arrested her on something that they say violates their laws. So that's the tricky part. And it's going to take some very, very, very creative lawyering and some very creative international lawyering and diplomacy to go ahead and help figure out this situation, because sis is really, she's facing up to 10 years, and this is a serious situation. And Vladimir Putin, on top of a lot of our enemies and frenemies, they know that race is a way to destabilize the hearts and minds campaign that you need in a situation like this. The Biden administration needs Americans, especially Black Americans, to be on their side, because we're savvy on social media. So where are we going to be most vulnerable? It's on social media. So get ready for a lot of disinformation to come our way, to make sure that we're not terribly supportive of Ukraine, because that's definitely part of the calculation.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
You know what? Like the way I see this whole thing panning out is, it's unfortunate for Brittany, because the timing of it really was just unfortunate. I think that in any other case, she may have been gone out of jail by this time, right? Through diplomacy efforts. But in that same vein, because of diplomacy or lack thereof and the tension between the U.S., I'm just fearful. I'm fearful for the sister that she may not get out, and if she does get out, it won't be until the U.S. has made some type of
negotiation.
That she's going to be a political pawn in this process, and whether or not the United States intends on getting in for real, because even if this goes beyond Ukraine, Brittany's still going to be there, and then it's going to be like, well, then are we bringing Brittany home? Is she a priority? Then why is she not a priority? Me and CJ was talking about this in Charlotte, about literally not only she is a woman, she's a Black woman, she's a queer Black woman, right? So she has marginalization on system after system that's oppressing her, right?
Right.
And there really is no real cover for Brittany. You know what I mean? Even right now through the news, it was really disheartening, to be honest, man. And I'll say this on live on our own channel. It's seeing brothers, especially brothers out there, trying to rationalize what's happening to Brittany, knowing they're oh man, if you should have never did that, then you wouldn't be in jail in Russia. Understand the political climate, and that literally Russia is at war with Ukraine, that may even spark another world war, right? Depending on how far this actually goes. I'm man, I get really, really worried about Brittany, and whether or not she'll be able to kind of get out in a timely fashion. So, I'm praying for the sister. I know we all are. But what I would like to see from administration at some point is some kind of statement, right?
Yeah.
I think that it doesn't go beyond the realm of reason that we have literally an American citizen incarcerated right now for things that literally they know good and well would not fly to the United States. She would never even be in jail at this point, right? Maybe detained, maybe something, but it wouldn't be this. And I just feel man, it's just unfortunate that how it all went down, and really more so, even more unfortunate about some of the, I guess, the comments around Brittany, as if she deserved to be incarcerated. Yo, you did this, you brought this on yourself. And you
yeah, man.
I don't know if she brought it on herself. I think it's just the fact that the world just really despises Black women for every rhyme or reason, and then this is just a way to once again I was reading. I don't know if y'all. I'm telling you, if y'all ever read Cast, and I was reading Cast while this all was going on, right? And literally talks about how the Black woman has been used as a pawn in every point in history, going back to slavery, right? And I look at this as another instance in time, another data point where another Black woman is being used as a political pawn for the advancement of literally between two countries that were virtually built upon white supremacy. And it's unfortunate.
Can we also point out the equity disparity, the reason why she was there in the first place? Because the WNBA players are not getting paid anywhere near.
Yes. Okay.
Go ahead and talk about that.
let's
This
let's
part.
get into it. Yes, I mean, because I mean that is so important to the conversation, right? Like inequitable payment for professional athletes, and WNBA had some other things going on, like just the week before, where they literally, my bad, they literally wound up punishing one of the teams for chartering planes during COVID to facilitate safety for the teams. Like they literally talked about putting that team out of the league because they did not want that team to have an unfair advantage versus what all the other teams had who were flying publicly. But all of the men's teams are chartered in the NBA. So comparatively speaking, you know, and again, like you highlighted, Russia was paying professional athletes more. Russia was paying women more to come play basketball over there, and so they were over there. And maybe aren't as aware, as you all are, per se, with regard to the conflicts that are taking place. But I know that I recall seeing a feature on Brittany and Diana Taurasi, who's another really great NBA player, talking about going overseas to play ball at that time. But yeah, protection of Black womanhood is definitely something that we need to be leaning into, even without fully understanding all of the details. For me, all of the details aren't necessary, because what I understand is that she's literally in Russia's custody right now,
Mm-hmm.
and even if whatever precipitated to lead her to Russia's custody, I know that now she's in Russia's custody, and that's in that could potentially be utilized as a bargaining chip when you're talking about a a a leader or a dictator, however you want to characterize Putin, um, someone that has the ability to go to drastic measures
Mm-hmm.
for when someone is in opposition
Mm-hmm.
to them. Uh, I wanted to talk a little bit about
Yeah,
the
he's
types.
desperate Danny right now.
Yeah, like I want to talk a little bit about the types of attacks that have been taking place, where they're taking place, and why they're taking place right now. Nola, if you want to kind of get into it, I just personally saw today that a maternity hospital was bombed
Mm-hmm.
recently, and that struck me as and that struck me as something that goes beyond what you would normally rationalize as within, if there are any rules to war, that would seem to violate
There
the
are rules
concept
to
of
war. That's
war,
why
right?
war
Absolutely.
crimes.
And this and one of them being you cannot uh knowingly and intentionally harm civilians. It's a reason why in symmetrical warfare that there are rules of engagement. There are certain infrastructure things that you hit, and there are other things that you do not. And a hospital and schools and homes, those are things that are off limits. So that's what I'm saying, like, you know Putin he's not engaging in a way that we can think that it's going to have some sort of solution that is going to there's a word that I'm trying to say. It's not going to be this kind of traditional engagement of warfare, where the U.S. is still kind of stuck in that model and that way of thinking about war. Putin has pushed that narrative beyond. This whole concept of him being rational, irrational, honey. He didn't redefine all of that. We are we are redefining all the things because we are definitely in a moment of the international system reordering itself. And I am happy that all these beautiful Black folks right now in this space that we are talking about it, because again, we have a stake in this democracy and we have a chance to really pull up to the table and kind of redefine this stuff in our own imaging.
Thank you so much for that. The good sis April has pulled up to the building. April Love, how you doing? How you doing? So glad. Hey, April been putting in work today, y'all. So
She has.
we appreciate her for coming to the function and kicking with us. April, if it's not too much, I don't want to put you on the spot. If I am, then you let me know. You know what I mean? But I want you to join the party and be able to talk to us about what's on your mind as it relates to this. So I mean, there's a lot to talk about. We left some meat on the ball for you, so you good.
Okay, so I don't know what you guys have already, discussed, but I know that when all of this first started happening, you know, I paid attention to it a little bit, but then I was like, you know, there's so many other things going on. We got sentencings going on, you know, for police killings. We've got, you know, lynchings and hate crimes being sentenced right now. And then, you know, it kind of hit me, should we be paying attention to this as Black people, even though there are other things going on? And I kind of realized that, you know, our attention doesn't have to be just exclusive to one thing. And I'm glad I started paying attention because, you know, then we started seeing the people of color being discriminated against at the border, as they were trying to exit a war zone. Women and children who were of color were not being treated the same as white women and children of color. And so I was like, wow, I'm glad I kind of like had my spidey senses on, you know, had my radar on, because now people who do look like me are being affected and it's not being publicized the same way. So I'm super excited to, you know, listen to the experts, you know, on these matters.
For sure. No, that's a good question. Shalonda, you want to take
I was
pull up on
going to
that one?
say, you know, kind of picking off what April said and echoing Nola, just all about, you know, her giving the broader history of where we are. We also got to think about where we are in the United States on this issue as well. Like, how did these sanctions implicate us? What happened? And as we all know, one outside of the other topics that has been major, we talked about gas prices, right? And everybody, I mean, from TikTok to Instagram to social media, that's all you see is that once the sanctions were put on Russia and everything like that, we saw an increase in a whole lot of things. And of course, like I always say, who going to be the ones affected by it? Women of color. Minimum wage is $7.25. Gas is $4 in some cents, $5 in some places. And then if you have a big diesel or bigger vehicle, like some moms do, depending on certain children, you know, how many children they have, their gas is like almost $6. So we also have to look at the economic crisis that this is going to have on us as Americans due to this, and how long is this going to last? Because we don't know how long these sanctions are going to be in place. As Nola has said, Putin is on his really high horse and he's trying to make a statement, and until both of these countries become diplomatic and how we can solve these issues, which is going to be a very long time, we got to think about where are we going to stand economically, and then where these refugees are going to go. Although they're going into a lot of the eastern, they are, you know, refugees are neighboring to their Eastern European countries like Poland and Hungary, United Kingdom and France. You have some who just want to leave Europe as a whole. And so how are they going to get there? And what are they going to do? Some of these women and girls got to start their lives all the way back over, get to know a different, and it's not always easy when you have to transition. And it's very unfortunate that a lot of these issues have happened. And of course, this is why we always say women of color need to be more into hierarchy when it comes to government, when it comes to, the State Department, the White House and all of those things, is because we tend to look at issues differently and how they implicate everyone and not just a one-sided way. And so that's why it's very important that we not only think about it from the Russia and Ukraine standpoint, but how is this going to impact us over here in America? And it's impacting us a whole lot.
And additionally to the gas, you know, because the gas was already rising. You know, I live in LA. You know, my gas is $6.13, honey. And guess, honey, that's why I moved in. But you know, additionally,
right. Listen.
Additionally, go back to the South.
Listen, now I paid $80 the other day in New Orleans, so
I paid $60-some to fill up my tank.
Yeah, it's real.
But guess was gonna catch everybody, especially the vegans and all the Black wonderful health food people. We get a lot of our wheat from Russia. We also get a lot of our grains and sunflower oil from Ukraine. And so, you know, they're kind of busy right now. So they're not harvesting, you know, they're not exporting. So we're going to also feel it at the dinner table. We're going to feel it at the grocery store. And the point that I want to make with gas is, so prices were already rising, right? And so the Biden administration had been out there trying to make new partnerships because they saw this coming. They saw this coming. And this is really companies taking advantage of the global instability and hiking up these prices. Because it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. I mean, the amount of crude oil that the United States actually gets from Russia is minimal. So that's actually not the only reason contributing to gas prices. There's this really horrible saying that what is it? When there's war, when there's blood in the street, buy, what is it? When it's blood in the street, buy property or something like that. It's this really capitalistic kind of dark joke, basically saying when there's rumors of war, when there's war, that's when you want to capitalize. So right now we're seeing a lot of grossness on top of COVID, on top of supply chain situations where there's an opportunity for people who are in charge of gas prices to raise them. And our particular government is not in charge of gas prices. So we're going to continue to be exploited, because of the situation that is happening. And I think this is an opportunity, for climate warriors out there. I mean, I think we should be crude oil independent anyway. Hello.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know why we are so hell bent on making relationships in regards
to good look for the future. It's
I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, I just
if I'm not mistaken, aren't we the largest producer of crude oil in the world? It's like Russia's number 2, we number 1. Somewhere we're in the top 3. I know that, right? Like we don't need any country. But there was a good report that came out recently by this group called Navigator, and it was talking about where we're at right now that kind of led to inflation. And I don't know all the intricacies about trade, and so I don't want to be an expert here, but the nuts and the nitty gritty or the nuts and bolts of it, or more high level, is that since 1996 or late 1990s, right, there were some trade agreements that really led up to that, was subsequent to the late 1990s. And then from those trade agreements, there was a particular clause in those trade agreements that allowed merchants, right, from different countries to have secret agreements that you didn't have to disclose. And because of that, and you fast forward now 20-something years later, you have a bottleneck situation to where there was this effort and this willingness and wantingness to become more efficient. And I'm looking at this book. It's so funny, called American Amnesia. And it's talking about a mixed economy. And I read this a little while back. And honestly, this bottlenecking and this wantingness to become more efficient is part of the reason why we're at where we're at. Monopolies being formed, right? And allowing these country corporations to grow and proliferate and to really take a stronghold in the economy. So now you're seeing CEOs and corporate greed at an all-time high because they know Americans and everybody really across the board, but really more so in Americans, really can't, they have no say-so about it, right? Because when we go to our grocery store, we still need food, right? When we go to the gas station, we still need gas. When we cut on, we still need electricity. So they have no problem. So while they're saying inflation, at the same time, those CEOs are raking in more money. And that's one thing that's really not being talked about enough, is that CEOs are raking in more money than ever before, and then giving off dividends. And so, like W. Du Bois said a long time ago, man, when America catches the damn cold, black folks catch the flu. And right now we are in the very, very precipice of having the flu right now again. While this country may not go in recession, poor folk, economically insecure folks are most vulnerable in these situations. And honestly, even some middle-class folks, hell, I'm feeling it. Not just gas. I go to the store every day, man. I'll be real with you, man. And it ain't fun. It ain't fun. I'm looking at these chicken wing prices, man, and they expensive, man.
We had chicken since COVID. Let's be real. Think about.
I'm just being straight up. We got to talk about what's happening. I feel like
I'm not gonna name the franchise. There's a franchise. They have the nerve to charge almost $30 for a 6-piece. Come on.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I literally.
No, you got to at least sit in the chat so I know. But no, seriously. And I've been saying this years ago. I had a mentor to tell me the next war will be over food, and this was back in 2014 and 2015.
I said water first.
And what happened with COVID is that we saw how quickly food really disappeared out of grocery stores. If you go into your Target, you go into your Walmart, the shelves are still not full to capacity the way they once were. There's a big thing, supply and demand. Now people not realizing it, they're only putting out a little bit at a time. So if you're not going to your normal grocery stores every week or bi-weekly, however you schedule it, you're going to miss out. And then you go into the food and produce section. The food and produce don't even look the same. It's not as it used to be.
Oh Lord.
Yeah, no, so like there's a big war on food, and I don't know, and that's kind of like what I said earlier. We don't know when this crisis is going to end. I wasn't just talking about the crisis with Ukraine and Russia. I'm also talking about our economic and regular, resources that we use on a daily basis. I don't know when that's going to end, because we're what, in 2022.
Yeah.
COVID started in 20 or late
2020.
2020.
March
And we
2020.
still,
That's when they
and
started acknowledging it, March 2020. Yeah.
yeah, but I tell people we started literally late 2019, if you think about it, because I'll never forget there was a meme that went out that where a woman was sitting in the airport, and she had on all this stuff. We didn't know what the meme represented. We just thought it was funny. But that was because they were representing COVID. But I say all that to say this is that we are really in a crisis, and kind of pick off of what Cirillo said is that we are being affected by it more than ever. And as Black people, this is the reason why we should be interested in Ukraine and Russia. We are, because of what is happening here to us, and how, although we are seeing the disadvantages of what's going on with, we all know European countries are racist. That's nothing new. We've been experiencing that since history, but we also got to think about how we're going to survive this, and what can we do as a group of Black people and people of color to come together to make sure we are having the resources that we need. And how do we elevate our voices constantly? Because it's going to take a lot of work on all of our own hands, the foreign policy experts, the social justice experts, like Nola said, the climate change advocates. Like, it's going to take a really big power of people to kind of shift this dynamic. And we don't know how this is going to end, but I just hope that, by the time it does, we're all in a space where we can truly be like, I always say millennials, we for some reason, we just been surviving it all. But then we also got to think about our ancestors who had survived certain tragedies, World War I, World War II, Jim Crow, slavery, like all of these things. So Black people, we're always affected.
Oh, that's
always on the menu.
Yes, listen, that's real. What y'all got me thinking about is the fact that, like, all of this is intricately put together. You think about the fact that we're talking about supply chains, and we understand that there's been a substantial impact on China's ability to, which is one of the major supply chains suppliers to really the Western world when it comes to a great number of things. Um, that be impacting our grocery stores. We talk about Biden wanting to seek an alternative for oil and petroleum or whatever, and reaching out to Saudi Arabia and UAE, and being rebuffed by the prince, essentially, or at least being put out. I think the prince of Saudi Arabia didn't want to meet with him to discuss an alternative. I think America had been getting about 8% of its oil and gas from Russia prior to this conflict, but the whole notion of sanctions and things like that is something that I know for a lot of us we didn't understand. I tried to explain it to someone in the crudest way I could, no pun intended, and that in that sense that I try to say that it's kind of like countries electing to boycott another country. If y'all could kind of get into what sanctions mean, why that's an aspect of war, how effective that is as an aspect of uh battle, or attempting to prevent a physical or a violent conflict expanding. Could y'all get into that a little bit, Nola?
Sanctions, so they're meant to kneecap you. They're meant to economically decapitate you, period. And because we cannot directly engage in a kinetic war with Russia, and a lot of people forget that Ukraine is not a NATO member, and I think that's a very salient point that we need to make sure that we are uplifting, because while NATO partners, and including the US, are engaged in trying to help Ukraine, as much as possible without physically getting involved, there is a limitation. There is a legal limitation. And not only that, there's also this kind of dictator person who has access to a lot of nukes, so that's the first thing. That is the first thing that you have to kind of consider. So the sanctions and the Biden administration being able to rally the security alliance, like, as an IR person, as a foreign policy person, and I know not everyone goes to sleep thinking about this, but for whatever reason, God and the ancestors called me to this work, honey. So this is just something that I pay attention to. The fact that the Biden administration was able to rally the security alliance in the way in which it has is a testament to. It is a testament to diplomacy, and it is a testament to a lot of the liberal institutions that were set up after World War II. And sanctions are what the administration has available has available. And in addition, other countries also supporting those sanctions, and not just the US sanctioning Russia, but the fact that Germany, completely, invested in its military, something that it hasn't done in like 75, 80 years because of their involvement in World War I and World War II. And for Switzerland to say, hey, we're not going to be neutral in this. We're actually going to, also, play a part in this sanctions role. Absolutely. Don't listen to people that like to say that sanctions, don't bother Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin, and a lot of his miscalculations, did not think that Germany and Switzerland would be like deuces. I don't think that they really thought that Germany would not approve the pipeline, going through, but they didn't. So I think that there's a lot of miscalculations on Putin's side and Russia's side. But what we do have in our arsenal is this ability to sanction and then to bring other allies and partners in on the sanctioning. The fact that their money, that the ruble is pretty much worth a penny, the fact that they're being pushed out of SWIFT, which is the kind of global economic system that all of these big power states have access to, the fact that they're not able to export, the fact that people can't go to McDonald's, the fact that they can't use their Visa card and their MasterCard. Trust and believe, your citizens are going to wonder why their credit cards are not working. And you need your citizens. I don't care if it's an autocracy or a dictatorship. You need the people on your side. This whole concept of hearts and minds, that is integral to any leader that's that has brought its country to war, because you're going to need your people on your side to sustain it. So the psychological impact of economic sanctions, the physical, real impact of economic sanctions on the people will absolutely have an impact on Vladimir Putin. And I think we're already seeing signs of that. So that's kind of how sanctions with the US and the rest of the partners and allies are working.
Thank you for that, Nola.
Also, just to kind of, give feedback off what Nola saying, all of it's true. And we also have to look at the financial crisis that's going to happen in Europe, where they're suffering as well because of the Russian invasion, and because their banks are located, of course, in both countries. And then I also was reading it right before we got on, because I kind of wanted to know a little bit more. And this is just statistically proven by the Business Center from, I think this came from Harvard, I can't remember. But like any companies that are owed money by Russian businesses are going to struggle to get repaid. And given that the ruble is down like 30%, and the SWIFT restrictions are going to make payments very difficult. So, for example, Reuters, how you pronounce it? Reuters. Listen, I'm not an expert, but I want to give people facts. And I believe it's important, because I always like, if we're going to give something, we got to give a description of what this is and how people can understand. But Reuters has reported that United States companies have about 15 billion of exposure to Russia, and many of this debt will potentially end up being written off, causing serious losses. So as we can see, they're like kind of echoing Nola. People are he's going to feel it one way or the other, and financially is where he's going to feel it, and what Russia is going to basically is going to implicate them the most.
Yeah, I definitely see where a lot of the Russian oligarchs and billionaires are beginning to, they're feeling it, and because they're feeling it, somebody said that the Russian oligarchs' wives were going to lose it when
they gonna raid them.
Was that April? Was that you, April? April said
that. Actually, that was one of my really good friends who is actually Russian and Armenian, and so she knows. She was born and partially raised in Soviet Russia and Soviet Armenia. So she was like, when I sent her the fact that Hermes was shutting down their stores and that Cartier, is it Cartier or Cartier? Either way, they were following suit, and that all of these other luxury brands, man, they know what it is, but all these luxury brands were following suit. You know, she was like, I sent it to her, and she said, oh man, these wives are about to go crazy. And like 10 seconds later on, I think it's called the Fashion Law, you know, they're reporting that people are, you know, remember what happened at the beginning of COVID with the toilet paper? That was starting to happen there with the luxury goods. And so, you know,
with Hermes bags, you know, they ran out of Hermes bags.
I don't even, you know, if you go in the store, they'll tell you they don't have any. So I don't know. But, you know, they started going out and buying up all of the luxury goods. And, you know, like I sent a text to CJ, and I was like, oh Lord, but they're smart. They know that those things are going to continue to hold value. You know, when their money doesn't have any value anymore, and when, you know, stocks start to plummet, luxury goods are going to hold their values. Hand sewn leather bags are going to hold their value. Real gold, real silver is going to hold its value. It can be sold later on.
And, you know, in addition, I want to bring up, you know, I talked about reputational security, and we cannot discount that. Like, listen, I don't think that Putin really calculated that the whole world was going to turn against him. He really thought he was going to get some form of glory out of this. And that's not what's happening. That is not what's happening. So not only are you taking yachts from people, but you're also tarnishing an already kind of iffy Russian reputation anyway. And so now that's going to be exacerbated. So can you imagine, like, you know, you used to stepping off your yacht in Italy, honey, to lunch, and then all of a sudden now you don't have a yacht, and then you can't even get a reservation. And don't let them know that's you selling that Hermes bag, because they're not going to want it from you because it's tainted. So all of this is a domino effect. You know,
that's
the way
gotta
that
be
also works this.
You know, so I have a question. And it can go to whoever can answer. I was texting with CJ. He put a post in the Black with No Chaser group and was talking about he was showing how the basically the Russian currency was like basically plummeting. And forgive me if I don't know these facts for sure. I only deal with history as a hobby, but I recall when I was like studying, you know, Nazi Germany and the Holocaust, that is something similar that happened after World War I in Germany. And that is what led to Hitler really being able to take power and lead to that propaganda and that pride of being German. Do you foresee that something like that could happen again? Like, is that something that we need to be watching out for? Like a, you know, like propaganda post this situation, you know, rebuilding that pride in Russia. I mean, it's already a very prideful situation, but do you think that that's something?
He's trying to do it with branding Z. Like, you know, there's this, if you see Z's on Russian tanks and stuff like that, that's kind of like, they're kind of like saying that's Putin's swastika, essentially. So, you know, Putin's really good at branding. You know, he's really good at information stuff, right? So he's really good at branding. So I think that this nationalism that you're talking about, the one thing that Putin did differently, say from Hitler, is the Germans were they bought into this concept of supremacy and superiority, like this whole kind of myth building of the, you know, the Anglo and all these different things, the way that religion and the occult play, you know, factored into all of this mythology. Putin has that, but it doesn't look the same way. The fact that many Russians woke up on the 24th to like, we at war, what war? You know, so there's this kind of like different approach to where Putin is just making the decisions as a dictator because he doesn't necessarily need, you know, the people to go along with him, right? So it's kind of different in that way. But absolutely, yes, to your point, April, he is absolutely trying to brand this. And if you start seeing the symbol Z, that is what, you know that's their kind of nationalistic support of Russia. So when you start seeing Z's all over the place, you'll know what that's about.
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
For me, and this is just from my theory, because like I said, I'm not an expert, but one thing I will say is what I paid attention to was how he, kind of like what Nola said, not only did he manipulated the media a whole lot. He figured out a way to get everybody's attention. He knew exactly what to say, how to move, how to shake. And it was like, if you notice, everybody kept saying, well, we don't know when. They never underestimated him that he wouldn't. It was always, he didn't know, we didn't know when he was going to do it, but they knew it eventually that he was going to invade Ukraine. And I always feel like when he saw how Biden did with Afghanistan, I feel like he tried to play on on his vulnerability at that time and try to see exactly. So if he pulled our troops out of Afghanistan, because I think like this, all of this is kind of like a stack up on each other. Once we pulled out of Afghanistan, which was in August, of course, people were upset. Some people were happy because we was in that war for 20 years. And then he pulled this, in this issue right here, and it was like I don't think he expected for Biden to hold these sanctions the way he did, or expect for him to react. One thing I always say about the United States is that we have a tight knit security. We provide security for a lot of countries that we're in, and part of that is because of our military forces. We have a strong military forces. And one thing that Biden did mention is that he was going to provide some sort of resource, which is military forces first. I don't think Putin expected for him to call off all these sanctions, and Biden didn't back down. He was not afraid of it. And I think that also showed him as Putin is that America, we're going to stand with those who stand with us. And I feel like that this is going to be a moment where we just try to see how it all unfolds.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for that. What I will say is I think that Biden has done an excellent job of organizing the other countries around this particular issue and having them aligned. Like you see that they're aligned with him on this. Canada's rocking with him. Germany is rocking with him. France and so on and so forth. They're rocking with him, and so I think that should not be something that goes unnoticed and unappreciated. Listen, I want to say this. I know y'all are some busy ladies, and y'all are literally fighting to save the world right now. So we appreciate y'all's time so much. I want to let you know that this is been one of my in the 4 years that we've been doing Black with No Chaser, and the few episodes that we've been doing Black People Be Knowing, this has been probably my favorite episode. It's not it is literally not it does not escape me that we have so many incredible Black women up here with us today talking foreign policy during Black Women's History Month. And so it's incredibly it's an honor to have you all. We welcome WCAPS back anytime that y'all want to pull up on us. Just to do how we do. Hopefully, we have the opportunity to educate and organize our people around some other issues sometimes in a more peaceful time. But we just appreciate y'all, and I just wanted to make sure that we showed our gratitude before y'all got out of here today, because I know y'all got stuff to do, and so we're thankful for y'all and y'all's time today.
Thank you so much for having
y'all.
Thank you so much. Can I just say one
absolutely
last thing?
Absolutely.
Point, as I definitely got to hop out of here to my next thing, but I don't talk a whole lot about the work that I do in the Afghan resettlement space, but I will say this. Being a part of an organization that focuses on women and the lives of women, I can't tell you how worried I am, not just for Ukrainian women. I'm also worried for Russian women, because I talk to women multiple times a week in Afghanistan with their babies in their hands, crying on the phone, trying to figure out, how can I get my family out of this horrible situation? And it's usually the women on the phone calling us looking for help. And the humanitarian crisis that is happening from this situation, we will all feel it. And the reason why I bring up Afghanistan is because we are still dealing with that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then on top of that, before Afghanistan, there were already 500,000 people in the refugee system.
Right.
So we are, we are dealing with multiple situations, and the refugee situation is going to explode. And the resettlement space, it takes a lot of work because none of this resolves itself overnight. So, in many ways, we're going to be dealing with the aftermath of this, even after whatever terms will be reached, we still will be dealing with the aftermath of this. And I want everyone to really think about, how that definitely does impact a generation of women who may grow up without a generation of men in states that won't be safe for them. Russia rolled back a lot of its domestic abuse policies in 2017. They say that they're about women's liberation, but that's kind of like in theory only. So I'm thinking about all the women that's going to be involved in this situation, waking up to their husbands, cousins, brothers, being in war and maybe not coming home after that. So I just wanted to tie that together and kind of bring in the refugee situation that's already compounded, and that we need to tuck in and we need to get ready because we're going to have to bear more of a financial burden, just like all the rest of the European countries that said that they are willing to do it. And we need to continue having these conversations and make sure that people understand why we have these economic burdens on top of the economic burdens we already had. So with that, I just want to say thank you so much for having me. And I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Nola.
you so much.
Shalonda.
Nola
Thank
Haynes
you.
and Shalonda Spencer.
Nola from Nola. Stop
W
playing.
Caps.
That's crazy.
Hey, y'all.
I-
Go ahead.
I'm done.
Oh, okay. Now listen, y'all, please get familiar with these ladies. They are literally forces to be dealt with. So we're really appreciative to have both of y'all
Thank you
here
to
today.
my home team. I greatly appreciate it. It's been a joy to sit on this platform with some amazing Black people. And it's like, you all realize we the next, right? Like, I'm literally just looking at this. And as we talking about these issues, you all know, like, we are next. We're the next generation. And so if we're talking about these things now and we're becoming experts in this field, or just with any field that we're choosing, we have the power and the audacity to truly change the world. We're going to do it. And that's just how I'm leaving it.
I love it. Look,
Audacity, honey.
baby, that's what I'm talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Shalonda Spencer and Nola Haynes from W Caps. Thank you, ladies. Me, Rillo, and April are about to just chop it up for a little bit before we get out of here. Thank y'all. Peace. Come back anytime. I mean that.
Bye, y'all. Thank you.
All right. So what's happening, people? What's up with y'all?
Man, not a damn thing.
That was some good shit. That was good.
That was good.
April, you did that. Hey, April been on our ass. She like, look, we need to talk about Russia and Ukraine. We need to get Shalonda. We need to get Nola. And we need to talk to them. And so April really handled this,
Like it just became so important to me. Like I didn't know, like all of a sudden, they were covering it on the news a little bit, like here and there, not too much. And then all of a sudden, if you know me, I love TikTok. I'm addicted. And all of a sudden I'm seeing all these videos on TikTok. I'm seeing all this information on TikTok. And I'm like, what is going on? And all of a sudden there's a war. Like, right. And, and then I was kind of like, this was around the same time that they found those 3 men guilty of the hate crime for the murder of Ahmaud Arbery and a few other high profile pivotal civil rights cases. And so, for me, it kind of started slipping, by me, the situation that was going on between Putin and Ukraine. And, then I started, getting on TikTok again, getting on Twitter. And I'm seeing that people that look like me, like, hold on, not only are they in a war, but they're stranded at the border in freezing weather. No. And so I was like, we need to jump on this. We need to talk about this. We need to really get our people educated on what is going on over there and how it affects us.
No, that's fact.
My favorite person this whole thing has been the coverage by the Congolese brother. And he was like talking about he ain't going to war. They try to get him to go to war.
I saw that.
Like, no,
I ain't seen that. If you had that video, I would absolutely post that.
No.
I would post that.
It's like,
yeah, like,
yo, they try to get Buddy to stick around, man, so he can go to war. And Buddy was like, bro, I don't know what y'all trying to do. This ain't not even.
This ain't got nothing.
Like,
this ain't my thing.
Modern day Muhammad Ali.
Right.
Ain't got nothing to do with me. I'm about to go back where I came from, wherever that is. He is like, because this right here,
This ain't for me. Like I'm trying to, like
this ain't.
that's that's real low. Like if you really think about it, I mean, like a lot of the students that were over there, a lot of people that were over there, were students. They were over there for education, particularly like a lot of medical students, a lot of students from a lot of folk from Africa go over for to do medical stuff over in Ukraine. And interestingly enough, I mean, a lot of people don't know this, but I was a foreign exchange student in Ukraine my junior year in high school for a semester. And so I stayed in Dnipro, which is one of the areas that I still have friends there. Like literally, I checked on my friends a week or two ago, and like they were talking to us on Facebook. It's crazy to like to fathom that they are literally experiencing this in real time while also trying to maintain and balance a life. I had one friend, they may be watching it right now. They're my friends on social media as well. So uh that said, how am I going to explain this to my son that that you're being attacked for this reason? Like how will I make this make sense to him? And like so in that regard, like just this whole thing is it matters to us, and I think that all of these situations really should. In this, when I say all of these situations, I'm talking about what's happening in Syria, what's happening throughout
Mhm.
the continent of Africa, as far as colonization and the exploitation of African continents. Um, and we should really be paying attention to foreign affairs in a way that maybe didn't matter that much to us when we were younger people.
When I was a teacher, when we would read, everybody has to read Night or Number the Stars, depending on what grade you are in. Eventually, you read one of those two books. And so when I was a teacher, I used to play this video. I found it was a commercial, I think. I think it's a British commercial, but they had a British child and her family, and it was basically a comparison to, I want to say, what was going on in Syria right now, and it made them the Syrian refugees. And I remember I used to show it to my students, and they used to say, "Oh, that'll never happen to us. That'll never happen to us. That'll never happen to us." And I think to myself, well, I wonder how many people thought this will never happen to us, this will never happen to us, this will never happen to us. And what's going on right now in Ukraine looks eerily similar. Like sometimes I just sit and think it looks eerily similar to that commercial. And you walk with the little girl through her birthday, with her parents. You see the news broadcast. You see her family leaving. You see her father get left behind. You see her mother, I want to say, die. You see her pick up this little boy. The little boy gets adopted. They're at a refugee camp. They're hungry. All of this kind of stuff. And man, the only difference is, like I said, this is a comparison to what was going on in Syria, is that these children were white, they were European. And, I guess they were trying to show them that this could be us too. This is not exclusive to, Black and brown people. And, every time I look at what's going on in Ukraine, I think about that commercial, because I mean, it's eerily similar.
I know
It's like
exactly which commercial
literally
you're
the
talking
same
about.
thing. I
Where
used
they
to
do
show it
that,
to my
it's almost like
kids.
that Save the Children, almost like how they used to go to different parts of Africa and do the Save the Children commercial, but the Germans did it with American
Mm-hmm.
kids.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
mean,
saw
like
that.
I really appreciate that commercial. Um, no, yo, so obviously, first of all, to the people tuning in, still with us and rocking with us, thank y'all so much. Thank y'all for sharing this. We enjoy, like literally the vibe. I talk to Rillo and April every day. Like the vibes are good vibes, and Sue Ann. And so like this is just the beginning for what we're trying to do with this. We want to bring a different type of energy to these types of conversations. We think that there's a lot of really important conversations to be had. We think that we need to have people like ourselves in the room for these types of conversations and be bringing them to the culture, to the streets. One of the things we want to talk about, man, have y'all seen it? Like just before we get into it, Have y'all seen? Uh, have y'all heard about what happened to Ryan Coogler? Ryan Coogler is the director of Black
See,
Panther and Creed and Fruitvale Station, which was about Oscar Grant. That
I
starred
saw.
Michael B. Jordan. So ironically and interestingly, that he would be caught up in a situation like the one we were about to talk about. Uh, you know, it's it's poignant in the sense that like you know this is this is kind of like the I wouldn't even call it a rite of passage. That's the wrong phrase, but this happens to us as black men, particularly happens to us as black folk. But sadly, it happens to us a great deal as black men. And so, um, Ryan Coogler was mistaken for a bank robber when he
even if you in
was
a band, you still a what?
a nigga in a coop. Kanye said that.
It's unfortunate,
Uh,
man.
yeah. So,
It's unfortunate, bro. Like,
yeah. So, yeah.
you know,
Talking to him about it, Rillo.
bro, that whole situation, man. Like, you play it back, and it really could happen to anybody. And the fact that his brother, and it really, the craziest part about all this, the whole thing, right? Somebody used to work in the bank. I used to work in the bank, right? Like, when somebody gives you their debit card and their ID and they're verified, right? There's no longer any conversation to be had about whether or not I'm the person in front of you. So for that, for that bank teller to then take it upon herself or their self to say that this was rising to an occasion of a bank robbery when the back of it says literally, I'm withdrawing $12,000 from my account, but because I'm in public, it is $12,000. I'm just asking you. You ain't got to count it because technically, bank tellers are taught to count money to train. You count it out in front of the customer, right? But what Kugler was saying was that, you know what, I actually trust you. You ain't got to count it in front of me. I just want you to count discreetly away from me so that other people around me who may be watching me, who may know me, who may not know me, who may saw me get out my whip, who may saw whoever I'm with and going, look, for my safety. And the fact that the first inclination in her mind was this brother is trying to rob me or rob this bank is like, just wow, bro. Like, it's like, when do black people, no matter where you reach status wise, right? And this is why I know I depart from Pharrell. Me and Pharrell a little while ago talked about it's more class and it's racism. Um, and I still think that racism ranks that is the top of the food chain in terms of like caste systems in America. It may not be everywhere, but damn sure in America. Is that like when you got situations like that, no matter how much money you got, no matter what you've done, you can win Oscars, you can win Grammys, right? You could be a Pulitzer Prize winner. You could be a professor at Harvard, right? You could be Joe Blow on the street. You could be unfortunately be George Floyd. And no matter what it is, at every turn, black man in America, black people in America are always vulnerable to these situations. And so it's just like it's unfortunate. You know what I mean? I'm just very thankful that the brother didn't get harmed any other way outside of being traumatized once again, being having to put in handcuffs. Because people don't even know, like, being put in handcuffs is a very traumatizing situation.
Oh,
You know, the
facts,
crazy part
facts.
is the bar is so low for black people in terms of interaction with law enforcement that we gotta say, well, at least you made out alive. Like, you good. Like that's the bar. Like, you made out alive. When it should be like, why was you even arrested or detained in the first place? Like, you were doing
Right,
everything lawful. And the main thing that pisses me off about all this is that the people that will say, well, you weren't acting lawfully. Had you been acting lawfully, this would not happen to you. And the
It's
things,
still
the,
gonna
the issues
happen.
we are raised is that when we are acting lawfully, this still happens. And so what
right,
now? And so it's like, it's kind of like, this whole merry-go-round and kind of like rat wheel kind of situation for black people. And it's unfortunate, man. I feel sorry for the brother. I'm glad he came out alive, but the bar shouldn't be, I'm glad he came out alive.
right.
He shouldn't have been arrested to begin with.
I'm about to show people the clip to just give them a sense of what we're talking about. And then April, I mean, you are, a black mom, so I really want to get your thoughts on this once we, have opportunity to look at the clip for a second. So I'm gonna set this clip up so that we take a look at it and then pass it to you. Okay. All right. Y'all let me know if it's working.
feel comfortable. So he told me to call police while he, I guess, stalls for
What
a
is
minute.
what is on the note, ma'am?
It just says I want to withdraw $12,000. Just be discreet.
Is this an actual customer, or are they trying to rob the bank?
They had a debit card and he inserted it. He gave me a California ID, but I was like, okay. I was like, how do you want the cash back? And he's like, just look at the note.
And he had no weapons, correct?
Not that I know of. He just has on black sunshades and a black hat.
Is he a black male, white male?
He's a black male. And every time I ask him like a question, he's like, look at the note.
So, okay.
But he inserted his debit card, and then I asked for his ID. He handed me his ID as a California ID. But I didn't look at his name because I'm just like so shook up. Like, I don't know what he's trying to do. So I just told him, give me one moment. You know, I have to get my manager.
Okay, so none of his information was even verified. Okay. He might just want to be discreet, but I have police en route.
Yeah, I mean, he might. It just seemed weird.
Sir, do me a favor, man. Come this way. Put your hand behind your back. Change my back. Got it. Got it. Is there any reason y'all doing this, bro? Give me one second.
Good job, guys.
What does the bill inside have under our black jacket?
The customer passed me a note, and so I just told my manager I didn't feel comfortable.
So that was the end of the video. I'm about to stop the video. Okay. All right. Yeah, so after having a chance to like view that, you know, hopefully for context for the people in the audience that hopefully you could see the note, but that was the actual note that he wrote while that we were observing while you were listening to the audio. And that was how he was dressed, that was how he was behaving. She literally went through some things. April, I'm gonna let you jump right into it. I'm about to solo lay out you and let's get it. Talk to us.
I don't even know. That's the first time I've actually, I mean, I've heard about it, but that's the first time I've seen the video and heard the phone call. And you know, you know, as CJ said, I'm a black mother. I have a son. So I have a black son, and you know, as Cirilla was saying, you know, like, you have to say, well, at least you made it out alive. Like, that is just so horrible. It is so unfortunate. You know, because I have to train my son from a very young age how to interact with law enforcement, how to interact with people who don't look like him. I speak wealth and prosperity over my son. I hope he's withdrawing $12,000 from his account one day. And if this were my baby, I would be uncontrollable. I would be so upset. You know, I just, every day I think about what it's going to be like when he gets older. You know, black boys turn into black men sooner than any other child. Black girls too. They turn into black women sooner than any other child. Black children become adults before they're even adults. They're treated like adults. I think we were talking about it in our group chat. I forgot where the situation took place, but the two boys were fighting. I think they were in the mall. One was black, one was white. You know, the aggressor was, when the police got there, was on top of the other child, and the police pulled the white young man off of the black young man and patted him on the back, checked to make sure he was okay, and then put the black boy in the cuffs. And I just, every day that I see stuff like that, I imagine that being my child when he gets older. when he is still a child. You know, I mean, like, it shouldn't be happening to anyone, but it's happening to our children. And I just, it makes me so scared of my son growing up and becoming a Black man. It's just, and then, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, was the person on the phone a Black woman?
It sounded like a Black woman to me.
It sounded like, I don't like to generalize, you know, Black people, we are not a monolith, but, you know, like, that makes me say, who can I trust my baby around as he gets older? Where is the like, if I mean, you know, I did a Shalonda and I, we've known each other for a while, and Shalonda has been my boss before. And so, you know, I did a research, a historical analysis on white supremacy for her organization a couple of months ago. And one of the things that I found, even in countries where the population was predominantly Black, a lot of the practices of the police and the practices of, you know, people in high authority were still rooted in white supremacy. And this situation right here just screams rooted in white supremacy, rooted in thinking that Black men are criminals. Even as a Black woman or a woman of color, you know, you still see Black men as something dangerous, you know, like the man was just trying to be discreet. Now, would it have struck me as like, this is a little weird, but he gave you your debit card and he gave you his ID. It's not strange anymore. Like, I just, you know, it's very scary. It's very, very, very scary.
April, let me tell you, CJ, I'm gonna tell you one thing that was like abundantly clear to me. As she was regurgitating what was on the note, she conveniently left out a key phrase. I'm trying to withdraw $12,000 from my checking balance. That's what he said. The note said my checking, it didn't say a checking balance, whatever it is. My, like, not somebody else's, this is mine. And like literally for the safety of him, and like literally she just leaped over. She's like, yo, you're trying to take money from a checking account. No, not just any checking account, not Joe Blow in the line, not your checking account, not the branch manager's checking account. No, his checking account. Operative word there was my shit. And so to me, it's like, even when you're stating this is mine, you like, this still happens. I mean, honestly, this is just like, I mean, I really do hope Kugler sues, but I mean, I don't know if you really can, because branch bank tellers, right, are taught to use the discretion in these type of moments. So it's just really one of those things where it's like, it's just another instance, like literally like existing while Black, you know what I mean? And it's just like, honestly, like, it's just weird. The conversation between her, it's like, it's almost as if the person, the 911 caller, right, or the dispatcher, was trying to talk her off the ledge. Like, sis, like, are you sure you're reading this correctly? Like,
yeah, right, exactly.
It could just be that he's just withdrawing a large amount. Are you sure? And then she goes, the dispatcher goes, well, he could just be trying to be discreet. And in the note, it literally says, I'm trying to be discreet. Can you be discreet?
Yes.
And the dispatcher, unbeknownst to what the note says maybe he's trying to be discreet, but I got people coming.
Yes. And so let's talk about,
maybe we need more training. Like, I don't know, like maybe we need a test to get into being a bank teller, because she was not like receiving what was, I mean, I read it, you know, like
the deductive reasoning was not all there. And so, like, this what I'll say is, like you said, Rillo, the bank teller was literally trying to say to her, sis, you sure about this? Like, are you sure? One thing I know for sure is that there are people in money with wealth. I mean, people in Atlanta with wealth, right? There are people with substantial wealth in Atlanta. People that have the ability, Black people, that have the ability to go to the bank and withdraw substantial amounts of money. This happened and occurred in Atlanta. For me, it's not the issue is not that it was Ryan Coogler and she should have recognized him, or that, you know, this is the director of Black Panther and you should have recognized, and this should have never happened to Ryan Coogler. It's that it should never happen to a Black person, a Black man, period. And if someone were willing to just take into consideration all of the things that happened beforehand, then we never get to the things that happened in the aftermath. So literally, this man used his debit card every time when I go to the bank to withdraw money, I have to use my debit card. I have to put it into the machine. I have to put my PIN number in. Guess what he did? He used his debit card with his damn name on it, put it in the machine, put his PIN number in. Then he pulled out his ID. She recognized California, didn't recognize the nigga name on it. But if she would have looked at the name, she would have recognized that it was the same name that was on the debit card that he put in, that had the PIN number on it, that had his number on it. She didn't do
And
that.
on the account that would have pulled up as soon as he put the debit card in.
Right. But between the time that she went to go tell the manager that she thought this man was trying to rob the bank, and then call the police to tell them the exact same thing, she had the opportunity to look at the name on the checking account, the name on the debit card, the name on the driver's license. She literally says to the dispatch person, I didn't look at the name on there. If she would have looked at it, if anybody would have looked at it, one, if anybody in there was aware of who Ryan Coogler was, maybe they would have been like, hold up, wait, this Ryan Coogler. And Ryan Coogler would have got, hopefully they would have, 86'd it then because he was Ryan Coogler. But being that it may just be, a black dude who a lawyer or in financial investment or real estate or any number of professions.
Heck, somebody trying to buy a house.
Right, that's got the ability to withdraw $12,000, because you don't know what somebody looks like that's got $12,000. You can't look at somebody and tell if they do or don't have $12,000. But all she had to do is look at the account. Like they can look at how much money you got in your account once you pull it up, so they see, oh, he got $12,000 in his account. He doesn't want to pull this money out in this bank. He don't want to carry a big ass bag of money around in Atlanta, so that when he walks out this joker, somebody rob him. He was trying not to get robbed. He wasn't trying to rob nobody. And so that part is so frustrating, because it's like she dismissed all of the chances that she could have given him.
All the evidence.
In order to do that. And then when he gets there, he's encountered by two black police officers. I see at least one black police officer. Like everybody that I see in this process is black. But this is how the premise of white supremacy gets perpetuated even by people of color, right? When the officer gets in there, he pulls out his Glock. And that's when Coogler first realizes they are treating me as some hostile person in his bank. Like that's his first knowledge of I am being treated as a criminal in this bank at this moment, is when the police officer is already pulling out a gun. And so for me, that's when it gets really scary. Like it's scary. The thought that before you can even process what's happening, your life can be gone. Mm-hmm. All because you wanted to get $12,000 out the bank and be able to walk to your car with it and be able to get to wherever you were trying to get to with it in order to do whatever you were going to do with it. But you woke up black that day. And so, it's sad because it did sound like a sister. You even see one sister say to the police, "Good job, guys." Like y'all can go back and look at the videos on Black with No Chaser on Instagram. It's on Facebook. Y'all can see it on there. But the police officer literally, whoever that woman is in the bank, commends them for arresting an innocent man and having pulled out the gun on him. Thank God he didn't get shot. He didn't die. He survived the situation. But it definitely was one that shook me up when I observed it. So yeah. Go ahead,
hey, bro, I don't know if you want to jump in, but at the end, Ryan was like, he had a moment where he's talking to the police, right? And he was like, I see y'all perspective, but let me lend you my perspective. Like, he was trying to explain to him, like, look, y'all, I know y'all got a job to do, but do y'all ever sometimes, like, before you get on the scene, like, and you walk up, like, when you walked up to me, did it really seem like I was the guy robbing the bank? Like, I was trying to rob this bank of $12,000? Is that what it is? He said, before I knew it, I had Glocks drawn on me. And I'm like, I don't know what to do, right? And, like, bro, I don't know how many people out there have had a gun pulled on them. but it's quite frightening. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't even know how else to put it. And
Yeah,
like
it
you
is.
really, it's like a kind of an out of body experience because the only thing you focus on is the gun. And
Yeah.
and the thing is like people are like, well, just listen to the police officer. But when you got a gun staring at you, it's hard to really sometimes
Register.
decipher between the command and just the gun. So all you at this point though, and I'm glad, Ryan actually immediately just put his hand behind his back. The first thing he did was he saw the gun and he didn't even understand at the time. He didn't even appreciate. I assume, like, am I the person that's being like apprehended? But I'm black and I'm a man, so let me just go and put my hand on my back so I walk out here alive.
Yeah.
And sure enough, he's like, well, wait, I am being arrested. Like, damn.
And they arrested the other two people in the car with him too.
Did they? I think no. I think the brother that was with him was just like standing there, like looking like, yo, like y'all, do y'all know who this is? Like, this is
no, it was two people in the car. Like that, they arrested two people that was sitting in the car waiting on him.
Oh, they arrested all of them.
Arrested them, put them in handcuffs, and put them in the patrol car.
Bro, that's
like
crazy, dog.
Like they was like waiting, like they was the getaway drivers.
That's
like
that's a crazy situation, bro. That really is.
It really is. I know y'all got business to handle and stuff. Shit, I could talk to y'all all night. Yeah, I could talk to y'all all night. Y'all know that between y'all and Suran and whatever dope guests we have on. I really enjoy what we've been doing. I think we got something special brewing with what we're creating here. It's a different type of vibe than what I've seen out there. And so I'm excited to continue creating whatever this is gonna be with y'all, because it's gonna be special. And I see us being able to have conversations that are important.
I'm trying to give me a chain that says like has an acronym. You know what I'm saying? Black people be knowing, but I want to get it like
you need acronyms. You know I'm bad with acronyms. Y'all, I struggle daily with acronyms.
BPBK, yo.
I'll tell you more about it off camera. But like anybody who knows me and knows me well knows that I suck at acronyms. I can't say them right. I don't know what they stand for. But I got this one.
If you be up in DC, they got the acronyms. Like that's acronym city.
Let me tell you, when I first got out here, and I'm really big on people not using acronyms because most lay people don't know what people are talking about. Like, we have folks on from like NAACP, LDF, and Jared up there like, yeah, man, LDF. I'm like, bro, nobody knows what LDF is, bro. And then like we got Janelle that she like rank SPLC. I be want to have like a pause for the cause because I think in part of like having these moments is educating people on who are the drivers in the space. And so calling out and being experts is also being able to relay information and bring it to the folks in a way like we're not talking over them or around folk. And so I never want. I'm a big on. I remember short story here. I was a health science major back at FAMU, and I took a medical terminology class. And medical terminology class is crazy with the acronyms. I mean, like the whole class is just one big glossary of medical terms of art, and you just gotta know. And like I remember sitting there like, why we gotta know these? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, because at the end of the day, like, I'm not about to write now 10,000 acronyms every single day. Like, what's wrong with y'all people? But like, I get it. It's easier, right? It's easier just in the flow of conversation. But no, I'm like April. I hate acronyms because I'm not really always the best. I had to get better at them being in DC because everybody's throwing out CAP and CPD and SEIU and this, that, and the third. I was like, man, who are these people? Who are these orgs? I don't know these orgs. I don't know
what that stuff mean. What they mean. Say the acronym.
You know what's funny is some of these people didn't probably even know. They just knew the acronym, so they were just constantly saying the acronym, and they didn't even know who the hell organization was. Man, DC, man. So
before we get up out of here. Before we get up out of here, is there anything that y'all want to holler at the people about before we wrap this episode up today?
April?
I don't have anything, but I do want to throw out there that I'm really sad that I missed yesterday. Like I heard it was amazing. I heard that you guys talked about some amazing stuff. And I heard that, like, what you guys were talking to, somebody responded to it. So the issue is, for now, solved. So yeah, that's all I want to say is I'm sad I missed it. But I'm here today and I'm happy that, we got Shalonda and Nola on here to really educate us on international policy, law, relations, all of that.
Facts. We glad that you pushed that too. Like, that was so important for us. Real.
Yeah, I just want to say, one, again, happy Women's History Month. I think it's important that we keep uplifting women throughout this entire month, but also throughout the entire year. Just like Black History Month, we ain't gotta wait till a month to uplift, Black women in particular, but also all women, right? We know that the pay gap in this country is crazy, especially as it pertains to brown and Black women in this country, especially for Black women in this country. So hashtag pay Black women. So I want to just keep lifting it up. And lastly, too, though, look, we're gonna be in New Orleans for Jazz Fest, y'all. Black with No Chaser. So make sure y'all keep tapping in. We got more details along the way. But Jazz Fest weekend in New Orleans, May 6th, 7th, and 8th. Y'all stay tapped in. That's it.
Man,
oh my God, I thought I was gonna miss it. Oh my God, you scared me so badly. I get to come.
Yeah, what?
Okay.
We got to pull up on Jazz Fest. It's gonna be lit. Look, Rillo is really underplaying it right there, but it's gonna be live, y'all. So
no, I'm not yet. Honestly, I don't want to give too many. Look, as soon as everything becomes finalized. I just want y'all to know that if y'all not coming to New Orleans for Jazz Fest weekend, then you need to kind of like rearrange some plans. I don't know what you're doing May 5th, but forget that Cinco de Mayo plan. Go ahead and take them coins you're about to use for Cinco de Mayo and bring them things on down to New Orleans for Jazz Fest. I'm telling you, I promise you, it will not.
This will be my first Jazz Fest because my final exams were during every Jazz Fest while I lived in Louisiana. So this is my first Jazz Fest. I'm coming. I'll be there.
Pull up.
All right. Look, April. Look, if you don't come, I'm gonna be dropping photos in our little group chat, and you're gonna be like, I don't like Cirillo no more. And I'm like, you ain't gotta like.
I'm already mad about your Mardi Gras pictures. So let's not even go there. Let's not bring that up. Okay, because I also missed Mardi Gras.
Mardi Gras did look turned.
Law school.
Mardi Gras did look turned.
I don't know how I got in this space of just like all these like Xavier students, but it was like at least 80 of them, like just right here in this one little section, and it was turned. I was like, yo, I don't know who kids y'all are, but y'all, and I know half of y'all ain't from New Orleans. I know they're not from New Orleans, and so because people in New Orleans be turning up. But not, they was like on another level. I was like, oh, y'all like really on some like, we not from here. This might be our last Mardi Gras. We're gonna make it happen. Because a lot of them was like seniors. Because I was asking like, yo, what's y'all major? What y'all about to do? Shout out to the sister that I was talking to, man. She about to go to get a PhD in psychology, man. So good luck to her.
Let's go.
About to graduate from Xavier. But a lot of them had dope majors. So I love the sophisticated ratchet approach, man, to Xavier students, man. Y'all was lit out there.
Indeed.
Shout out to Xavier University, man. All the graduates and alumnus across the country, across the globe, doing amazing things. To the pharmacists that graduated from Xavier. To my pops, long time ago, graduated from Xavier, man, with his bachelor's and master's degree, straight up. So anyway, so got a lot of love for it, But with that being said, CJ, take us away, brother.
Look, y'all, this has been episode 3 of Black People Be Knowing. Your host, Sue Ann Robinson, April Love, Sabrillo Monego, and myself, CJ Lawrence, along with our guests, Nola Haynes and Shalonda Spencer. Yo, this has been an incredible episode. If you didn't catch it live, we're gonna run it back, and we're gonna make sure you're able to listen to it as well. I'm still working out the kinks on getting it set up on Pod, but we're gonna try to do that today, not tomorrow.
I'll text you.
Not tomorrow with a D. We're gonna get it set up today. All right. So with that being said, y'all, hey, we say in the Black with No Chaser community, think black,
live black, unapologetically, boy. Stop playing with us, man.
We out, and we'll be hollering at y'all We'll be hollering at y'all real soon. So stay tuned. Episode 4 coming soon. Peace.